Hello and welcome to Casual Shenanigans, a podcast all about DayZ, Battlefield, Arma, our feelings, our hopes, our dreams,
our nutrition, sometimes
our future, the things we share. I'm one of the hosts taking you on this celestial journey this evening. All right, sorry. I don't know what. I don't know what.
Where is this going? I'm so scared.
I don't know. Okay.
Improv.
I'm Germ Gaming, one of your hosts. I'm joined by Dave.
Hey folks, I am Dave, also known as Evil Viking 13, usually.
That's not your intro.
I know, it's been the same intro for like 10 months now.
Trying to mix it up. Okay, and then star of DayZ Breaking Bad, Yoshi.
Yay!
Is that the best way to introduce you, or would you prefer a different title? I figured that was... People will
That's
probably...
fine by me.
Okay, people probably know you more from that. So, we have news. And as always, we start the podcast with the news, unless we have other stuff to talk about. But we don't. So the news.
We do it unless we don't.
Just being real. Call of Duty Ghosts is coming out soon. They've released the system specs for the PC, and they are a bit of a doozy. The game is not demanding in some aspects. It only needs a Core 2 Duo and a HD 5870 GPU. So that's not that much. But it says it will only run on a 64-bit OS. And it requires 6 gigs of RAM minimum. Also, it's going to take 40 gigs of space on your hard drive.
Whoa.
40. That's probably mostly high-res dog textures and fish AI.
Yeah, this is Call of Duty we're talking about and not Crysis 4, right?
Exactly, yeah. I don't know where, there must be a ton of textures or tons of sweeping orchestral music somewhere.
That's actually kind of exciting. That must mean that they're actually dumping high-res textures for the PC version, just straight out of their art files.
I mean, there better be high-res something, because there are way prettier PC games that are 20 gigs. So
yeah, that still seems high, but that's still exciting, I guess.
Full HD cutscenes, 50 megabit per second,
Oh, yeah.
That could easily take up a few of those. Who knows? We'll see.
It's like Blu-ray quality cutscenes.
So yeah, that is potentially very interesting. In other news, a bunch of total idiots downloaded a GTA 5 torrent that was leaked this past week. GTA 5 PSA has not been announced for the PC, so the odds of a working PC torrent being available are basically zero. But
yeah, basically, pro tip, guys, when the game is at least 7 to 8 months out from release, the torrents probably aren't legit. I mean, really.
Yeah, but that didn't stop a couple million, many thousands of people from downloading
I'm sure.
It acted like a normal installer, and then once you're done installing, it was like, hey, if you want a serial key, you got to go sign up at this website.
Oh.
And people still did that, which is just evidence that some people aren't old enough to have computers or something. I don't know. But the people who did that then got 18 gigabytes worth of viruses on their computer. That's like nuclear levels of viruses. That's like, are you familiar with the bomb czar?
A little bit, yeah.
That's the biggest bomb ever detonated on Earth. The Russians detonated it. It was 50 megatons, which I think made it it was 10,000 times the power of Fat Man, which was dropped on Nagasaki.
Yeah, they felt it in Europe, didn't they?
The shockwave could be measured on its third trip around the world. They detonated out in the middle of Russia. It was 50 megatons. Yeah. They wanted to do 100, but their scientists were like, all right, guys, everyone knows 100 would be really cool, but we might crack the Earth's crust if we do that. So they were like, okay, I guess we'll scale it down to 50. So Google has this neat little tool where you can plug in a location and which nuclear bomb you want, and it will show you how far out everyone dies. Because that's a tool someone spent time on. So if you detonated the 100 megaton version of the bomb czar in New York City, people would be burned instantly, or not instantly, as soon as the shockwave gets to them, people would be burned to death midway through Pennsylvania. That's nasty. So anyway, this is about what we're talking about when we're talking about 18 gigs of viruses.
On an aside for the application that shows the detonation range of the nukes, I found this really cool old photo from the mid-50s of the mayor of London being presented with this scale model of the city, where someone had created this diorama with a giant mushroom cloud and the rings on a tabletop model showing what a nuke would do to the city of London. So like it was an actual thing even back in the 50s to like simulate the damage that it would cause. But
nothing makes the Cold War better, like some good old nuclear holocaust speculation.
It's like a paper mache mushroom cloud. It was kind of awesome. But yeah, 18 gigs of viruses, won't that be like a compilation of the history of viruses over the last 20
kind of like
years?
A museum display of everything that's going to happen to your computer.
It's like a buffet of viruses.
Like, if I found out that happened, I would probably just take the hard drive out and just, like, microwave it and then shoot it with something. Like, at that point, don't bother.
Drop kick it out the door.
You'd probably, like, rip the Ethernet cord out, throw your router away, throw your motherboard away. Like, it's all bad. Nothing can be saved. Yeah, anyway, so the Radeon 290X has been released, and as the resident AMD fanboy, I just gotta say, it looks like AMD is hungry again. Dave, have you read any reviews? Yoshi, have you read any reviews?
I want it. That's all I have to say.
I've only heard like secondary like chatter about the reviews. I haven't actually read one yet, but it sounds tasty.
I read 5. Here's the deal.
See, that's why I haven't read any yet, because that's what you're here for.
Yeah, this is my DayZ. Desperately trying to believe in NVIDIA, in AMD. I'm usually wrong, but I still come back. I keep crawling back.
Like every 4 or 5 years, they smack AMD in the face. I mean, NVIDIA in the face.
Well, this smack is here. The 290X beats the GTX 780 in almost every single benchmark. Like pretty much all of them, except a couple that are really NVIDIA friendly. And it's equal to or about 5% behind the Titan in the same comparisons. And it costs $550.
Yeah.
So it's $100 cheaper than the 780. $450 cheaper than the Titan, and it's equal.
That is awesome.
You can't really do any overclocking because the stock card runs at 95 degrees Celsius. But before you freak out, AMD said they did. Hold on.
Okay. So what you're saying is AMD has just released their GTX 480 that I just got rid of. I just got rid of all of mine. I sold the last one yesterday. I just got rid of my space heater. Dang it.
The power consumption is actually not that bad.
Okay.
And it's 95C, but they say they designed it that way, and that's totally fine. Yeah. And a couple review sites were like, you've got to be joking. So, I'm sorry. My wife's interrupting the podcast to show me some shoes she just bought. I love you.
That was a definite nod of approval.
So anyway.
But you realize that that's the exact same thing that NVIDIA said. Although the heat was ridiculous, it was true. My 480 ran at like 88 degrees Celsius for 3 years, and it was fine.
Yeah, and that's the same thing AMD said. So they wouldn't hurt it. And several reviewers ran these things for like 48 hours straight and said no problems. Yeah, there's a quiet mode you can put it into that will lower the fan down some, and it'll be full 95 degrees. It'll be a little cooler than that if you let the fan all the way up. But that's the stock cooler. Stock coolers pretty much are always crummy. When the aftermarket coolers get here, like the big old dual fan designs, I'm sure that's going to come down quite a bit. NVIDIA quickly countered, almost like they had this prepared and ready to go. They have the GTX 780 Ti coming out soon. Who knows what the performance is going to be, but they just tease that they have one, which is interesting.
Wait, you say 780 Ti?
780 Ti. They have announced the 760 Ti, and I think the 770 Ti too. Or maybe not the 770 Ti, but the 780 Ti. It's interesting because the 780 is really a Titan that's just been cut down by about 10-15%.
Right.
So this card's really filling a weird gap unless it takes the same price point as the 780 and the 780 drops to like 500. Because there is a big gap between the 770 at about 400 and the 780 at 650. That's a big gap.
That's still a bit too crowded for the high end, though, in my opinion.
I think so, but if they drop the 780 down to 500, it's all of a sudden, it's competing with the 290X again.
Yeah.
You know, right now, unless you want NVIDIA, there's no reason to get a 780 or a Titan for a strictly performance standpoint.
Unless you're not paying for it.
But, yeah. So that's kind of cool. And that's we'll take a brief segue to answer a listener question. Iceman, in the comments, has asked, let
me ask you a question.
Hey guys, I just bought a GTX 480. And have a paranoid feeling it won't run stuff like Battlefield 3 and 4. Am I just worrying too much? Dave, I think you can answer this.
Yeah. As I just mentioned a few minutes ago, I had a 480 for Almost 3 years, yeah. Battlefield 3, it loved Battlefield 3. You could not get 60 FPS on Ultra. There would just be enough frame rate variance in the high-end range. It would go between like 40 and 60. Like, it still was great, but not quite smooth. If you wanted to do probably mostly very high settings, I bet you could do 60 FPS on Ultra. Sorry, 60 FPS, full HD, 1080p on very high settings.
But let's be honest, very high looks so good. Like
It
you're
does.
not losing. You're not really losing anything.
Unless you're me, you probably won't care.
I mean,
you do need to pair it with a good CPU. I would say a quad core with a good overclock, AMD or Intel.
Yeah,
Intel preferred
definitely
for the 480. It likes it.
Yeah, it's a good card. It's still a very good card. You know, just lower the settings down a little bit. I mean, I played Battlefield 3 on my work computer as a GTX 650. Not that great. I got it just because I wanted some CUDA cores for video rendering. And I was able to play Battlefield 3 on like medium/high on like 45, 50 frames per second. I mean, it felt great. So you've got a good card there. You might just need to drop the quality just a little bit. In Battlefield 4, granted, none of us really know how it's going to run yet, but it's probably the similar story. Probably somewhere between medium and high, maybe high, a little bit of very high.
It'll still look good.
It's going to look good one way or the other. So I wouldn't worry about it at all.
And if you have the spare power supply, and don't mind the heat, 480s are going used on eBay right now for about $100, which is not bad. If it's a very powerful card, $100 is a deal. If you don't mind the heat and the noise, which finally after 3 years I decided was enough of that.
The heat and the noise are a big deal. I mean, let's be honest about that. There's a lot of heat and noise.
You see, originally I was that guy who said, I don't care how loud my computer is. If it's a good deal and it's a monster, I don't care. It does wear on you after a while.
It does. Yeah, I used to be the same way. I had like 9 fans in my computer to cool my 9600 GT SLI.
Yeah.
And you know, man, single slot cards. There just aren't that many of them anymore. But
not at all.
Yeah, you know, it does matter. But you know, it's also worth mentioning if you're thinking about going SLI. For $200, you could also get a newer card of a lower caliber, like a 650 Ti, is probably pretty close to a 480, and you could get 2 newer, much quieter, more power efficient cards for probably about the same amount of money, just as something to consider. But yeah, the 480s, they're still pretty beastly if you have 2 of them.
Yeah.
But there are definite downsides.
When I bought my 680 back in August, I was really hoping to match my 480 SLI. And even with a 20 or 19% overclock on the 680, so I have more cores and almost the clock speed of the SLI, I still can't match that 480 SLI. It's just a monstrous setup right there.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, not as monstrous as 27950s. No one cares. All right.
I was just letting you have your moment.
Can you send me one?
A 7950?
Yes, please.
What are you rocking again? Do you have a 6950?
Yes. And it doesn't run like it should.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
I know it's not running proper.
Well, then you might want to look at like a 280X or something. Might be a good...
No.
Money. Oh, okay. I guess I just meant theoretically you might want to look at one of those.
Yeah, well, especially since I'm going to be having to save up because I had the furlough. So I was out of money, and I need to be sure I have that $400 for my PlayStation 4.
That's a good point. You know, in the grand scheme of things, is it that big of a deal? Oh wait, did you say you're going to use that money for your PlayStation 4?
Well, I want to be able to make sure I have money built up so I can.
Makes sense.
I think Jeremiah's
pay off
face
my
just
Amazon pre-order.
No. I'm probably going to get a PlayStation 4 at some point too.
There was some judgment there, just briefly.
I don't think not at launch because I've got too much stuff to play on the PC. So I mean, I wouldn't be able to, you know.
What?
I'll wait till
Master Race.
I'll probably wait till they drop in price or something.
Yeah.
And wait till I have a nice TV to play it on again. Because currently my 27-inch computer monitor that's doubling as a TV, not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things, but it's a step down from the 50-inch I used to play on. So
I know it's not going to happen, but I hope I come back from London with a free Xbox One just so I can play it in front of Joel.
Just so you can sell it on eBay for like $2,000.
That's exactly what I told him. He's like, "You better keep it if you get one." I'm like, "No, I'm selling the thing on eBay and getting like a $2,000 gaming computer out of the money."
I wonder if the winning teams are going to get something like that.
There's no word on prizes. I think it's just a fun tournament. So.
I'm sure you're going to get some swag out of it, though, like some T-shirts or something.
The correct use of the word swag, the original use.
Yeah, the correct use. If you get an Xbox One T-shirt, just give it to Joel. He'll be happy as a clam.
Unfortunately, yeah, he will be happy with a t-shirt. That's too sad. Eric's
All right.
t-shirt.
Moving on in the news. The DayZ standalone has appeared in the Steam database as early access. It doesn't mean you can play it yet, but it means they're setting up for the early access program. Early access, if in case you're not aware of it, it's when a game isn't ready yet, but the developer releases it on Steam and they release a bunch of updates for it periodically, so you can buy it early and play it. Like they've been talking about what they're going to do with DayZ. So that probably means they're pretty close. No,
there's actually some new news on that too today.
Go for it.
The entries, there were actually 3 separate entries. There was the original DayZ entry on the database, which was the developer's build that they've been adding to since January. There was a new DayZ early access entry, as well as a DayZ server entry. Mm-hmm. This morning, they all disappeared, and then reappeared all compiled together, and someone was saying that, what's that game that just came out this week, early access? There's a couple of them, actually.
I think Space Engineers? Early access this week?
Yes, people who were, for some reason, tracking that game's database entry said that in the week before launch, the exact same thing happened. All the different server options and all showed up and then were compiled together, and then about a week later it launched. And then today, this in my opinion is even more exciting, a public-facing DayZ server appeared on the server browser, and there were a few devs playing on it. The interesting part for me, obviously they're going to be testing the servers before they put the whole thing live. That's not that surprising, especially if we're this close, but the server count on their test server was 167 slots, which is
when those servers
epic.
Restart, you are not going to be able to get in for 10 minutes. That's going to be wicked, unless they've made that network bubble amazing.
Yeah, that's what I was telling Joel, is that, we haven't heard what the results of the network bubble were, so maybe the results were just awesome. Now, Dean has already said that his sweet spot, in his opinion, for Chernarus is only about 100 players, otherwise it's just a little too crowded, along the coast and all.
I disagree.
You don't think so?
No, because even with 60 players, we've driven around for an hour and a half before and not seen anybody on a 60-person server, and that's covering a lot of ground. So
that's true.
That's not that many people. You could be on 60-man Battlefield maps and it feels quiet in parts of it. So
it's kind of a trade-off, though. Sure, you'd have more player encounters at more areas, but some of the cities would just be not fun to be in.
As they should be. As they should be.
Well, that's a fair point too, I guess. That's okay. I like that. There we go. 160 players it is.
I'd be okay with 1,000.
You heard it here first.
If there was no side chat.
Whoa.
Because I would just be...
You just spawn on top of a pile of bodies on the beach. You have to crawl your way down off the body. Yeah, so basically, I think you had the Thanksgiving prediction, right? Back in August?
I said Thanksgiving to Christmas, holiday season.
You might not be far off. I think back in August, we really had nothing to go on, so it's more of luck of the draw, but I think you might be pretty close.
I think so. All right, Tropico 5 has been announced. I guess this is more news for me than you guys, but you'll be able to guide your struggling dictatorship from the colonial era to the modern age. Ooh. There will also be a new combat system in multiplayer. Let's hope it's not always online multiplayer that you're required to do. Don't do that to us, Calypso. Hopefully there'll be enough servers when it releases as well.
Oh, speaking of strategy games with stupid DRM, what's that game? Warfare Global Escalation, I think it's called. I got it in the last Humble Bundle. Really cool Cold War RTS. Reminds me of World in Conflict, but a bit more tactical and I guess more realistic overall.
What's it called again?
Warfare Global Escalation, I think.
Not Raw Realms of Ancient War.
No, it's definitely a Cold War RTS. It's really cool.
I must have missed that Humble Bundle.
It's a little bit difficult, but the weird part is it's a great single player and multiplayer RTS. But no matter what mode you're playing, when you first launch the game, you have to create an account for this small little developer who's basically released this game and a expansion pack sequel. Their 2 games, you have to create an account for their studio to log in and play the single player of the RTS game. And I just found that to be really obnoxious. Why? There's no reason for that. It launches from Steam. Why?
Right.
Looking at you, Ubisoft and Far Cry 3.
Well, Tropico did the same thing. You had to have a Calypso account.
Yep, that's what reminded me of that.
I don't know if you noticed, but there is a picture that got leaked for Far Cry 4.
Really?
Ooh.
Yes.
Send me a link to that. I would like to see that very much.
I will.
And while Yoshi is looking for that, our last official bit of news. You found it? Well, that was anticlimactic. Yes. NVIDIA has introduced a new technology they're calling G-Sync. When built into monitors, it will adjust the refresh rate of the monitor to match the output of the GPU. This seems overly complicated considering humans can't actually see faster than 60 frames per second, even though people love buying 120 Hz and 144 Hz monitors, but more power to them. But science says you're not reaping the benefits of that. So
I think the idea behind the technology is actually to be more efficient than VSync. There's a better connection between the screen and the graphics card. If you dig into it, it's actually pretty exciting as long as it actually gets some support down the road. Basically, less wasted frames and a better input system. The game won't be trimming as many frames off, trying to match your screen's refresh rate, which occasionally causes issues with mouse control. Mm-hmm. So, like if you're moving the mouse and it's V-syncing, like traditional V-sync, and it's dropping frames, it's going to mess with that controller movement.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing: I've had one game, or now 2 games, that does not affect my frames if I have V-sync on, and that's Battlefield 3 and 4.
Doesn't affect it in a good way or a bad way?
If I have V-sync off, frames are normal, bouncing around like they usually do, and then V-sync on, the screen tear is gone, and the frames are the same.
Nice.
They do not affect me at all. That's the only game that's ever happened to me.
Very nice.
I'm trying to load the Far Cry 4.
I found the name of the game finally.
Who's in that picture?
The name of that RTS game I was just talking about, the Cold War one, is Wargame European Escalation. Kind of generic name, but the game is pretty great.
Cool.
Bit hardcore though, so tread lightly.
All right, before we get to our topics of the night, Dave, there was some Battlefield news about the lengths DICE is going to make Battlefield good.
Yes, let me bring up the blog right here. I've always really enjoyed reading about DICE's audio team. They have a pretty huge audio team now. I think it's like 10 or 12 guys and gals working on the team. And unlike a lot of game developers, looking at you, Activision and Call of Duty, they try to avoid using those massive Hollywood-style sound libraries because you end up with multiple games that are sharing sound effects. And is someone molesting their microphone right now?
Is mine sounding bad?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's starting to do that thing where it messes up a whole bunch.
It's you, Jeremiah.
It's me. Hold on. I will switch over to my other mic.
What are you doing to your microphone over there?
Let me make a note.
I'll keep rolling with my praise of DICE's audio team. If you just leave your earbuds in, I guess you can keep on keeping on. All right, anyway. So yeah, they generally avoid using those gigantic sound libraries. They do a lot of sound recording for every single game, even though their library, they said, is over 1 million files now. And what's really cool about the Frostbite engine, and this is a thing that a lot of engines do now, but I just love hearing about it. When they have, say, a gunshot sound effect, they don't just try to record a bunch of different gunshot sounds. They record the base sound effect, and then the engine actually processes the sound in real time to add reverb and echo and distance, so that audio is basically a way for you to navigate the battlefield. Like as you're moving around, everything is positional and sounds accurate, and it's really cool that the engine actually does all that in real time. But my favorite part of the audio blog talking about Battlefield 4 was they had a whole bunch of new water audio to record because of all the new boats and swimming stuff in Battlefield 4. And the description, and I don't have the blog here, I can't seem to find the link. I can't remember the guy's name, but one of the engineers, they were trying to get the sound of your soldier drowning. And they said that at first they actually tried to like film it or record the audio at like a pool to do some just, act like you're drowning sound effects. They said it sounded really, really cheesy and it made you want to laugh. Like it just sounded terrible. So what they ended up doing is this guy gets a mouthful of water, swallows half of it, so he's got water in his mouth and down his throat, and then he clamped his hands over his mouth and his nose until he was actually like struggling to breathe, and they all just recorded the sound. So he's basically drowning himself to get the sound effect, and afterwards they're like, "Oh yeah, this sounds great, good job." He's like, I imagine like blue in the face, like half dead.
Good grief.
So yeah, DICE is definitely going to the ultimate limits there to get us some sweet sounds.
Well, I'm glad the dude's okay,
That's
right?
something I was always wondering is how they did all the echoes and how they changed the voices in different areas and stuff.
Yeah,
Well, they've got processing to do a lot of that stuff. Yeah.
Jeremiah, I'm still getting a lot of feedback from your mic. I'm not sure if it's the one you're actually using or the other one's still plugged in or.
How is it now? Is it better? Oh, sorry. I'm recording on a different mic now, but
Google Talk still has it. That's cool.
How is this? Is this better?
Whoa, that's a lot
much
better.
Sorry
Beautiful.
about that. Yeah, something's going on with my the XLR to USB converter. It starts adding weird things sometimes. I'm not really sure what the deal is with that, but
Thanks, Mr. Picky Audio Guy, for your wonderful microphone tonight. That's right.
Yeah. Hey, this one sounds pretty good. This is the best $30 mic you can get.
As I go to drink some coffee directly into my microphone.
Pick one up. So yeah, that's cool. So we have a question from Sarky Sharky. Hey, I'm pretty sure this is meant to go to the Casual Shenanigans email, casualshenanigans@gmail.com. You too can write in and be a part of the show. But I'm 20 minutes through episode 26 and it hasn't been mentioned yet, so sorry. That's okay. It's casualshenanigans@gmail.com, which you can write into to be a part of the show, just like Sarky Sharky.
Promo.
I'm wanting to get a PC next year for around the price of £1,200, £1,350 max, I imagine USD equivalent. Oh, he means $1,350 USD equivalent, including Windows 7, and he wants it to be bought in a store. His parents will not let him build it himself.
Oh.
Are these specs reasonable, or should I downgrade or upgrade? He wants to render videos in 720p, live stream and record games like BF4 at decent frame rates. He's used to consoles, so 30 frames per second plus is fine, and mid to high settings are ideal.
Until you experience 60 FPS on Ultra, and then there's no going back, my friend.
Unless you don't really care that much, but, you know.
Once you see it, you care.
So here's his suggested specs. I guess he's pulling this off of a build he's found. GTX 660 or 760, or if he gets enough money, 770.
Nice.
8 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance DDR3 1600 megahertz RAM. Either a 3570 or 4570, not the K versions, just a 3570 or 4570. A Corsair 650 watt power supply, 2 500 gig Seagate Barracudas, an 128 gigabyte Crucial M4 SSD, an NZXT Phantom 410 case, sound card, wireless card, and whatever motherboard. He's not sure about that. He wants to keep to Intel and NVIDIA. He understands more about them. He said, feel free to suggest AMD, but so let's say
don't worry, Jeremiah will.
$1,350 max. How do you feel about that build?
And that's the pre-built one, right?
Yeah, that's pre-built. Here, I'll drop it in chat here so you can see.
Yeah. I want to kind of see it laid out. It's
Okay.
I think it's overpriced, but being pre-built, that's kind of expected. The RAM especially is a little bit slow and a little bit low.
1600 megahertz? That's not that slow. That's normal.
Right. Well, that's just it. That's normal. And for $1,300, that's slow for that money.
Okay.
I would say, it's a decent build, but for that price, I don't think he should go for a pre-built like that. If anything, if he's going to spend that much, he could go for an Origin PC, because that's where they start at, and they're good at that starting price.
Can you find us while we talk about this, could you find us an Origin PC for, let's set it at $1,250 just to give him some headroom?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure shipping's not cheap and stuff. I'll see what you can find for that real quick, Yoshi. So a 760, 660, or 770. Obviously 770 if you can. If you can't, 760 is a great card. I think 660 is probably a little bit too weak.
Don't. Not for that money, not at all.
But a 760 is okay. Like that's about similar to a 7950. So, in a couple of years, you're going to definitely feel it and want to upgrade, but that's not a bad card for now.
Or add a second card.
Add a second card. Power supply, great. Corsair, good brand, 850 or 650 watts, you're fine. The 120 gig SSD, little bit small, but for your budget, it's good. 2 500 gig Barracudas, I don't understand that. For the price of 2 500 gig Barracudas, you could get like a 3 terabyte Barracuda. So I don't know how they're setting that up.
Are they in RAID 0 maybe?
I don't think so, because they're storage drives.
This is a pre-built though, and they love advertising speed, so maybe it's a possibility.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know. I don't love the Barracudas. The case, I mean, that's whatever. That's normal. That's just a case. It's, if it works, who cares? Now the i5, the 3570 and the 4570 are awesome processors, but they're more awesome when they're overclocked.
Yes.
Mine, I think stock, my 3570K was 3.4, so I'm assuming that's the same as the non-K version. And it was good. The performance was good, but you don't really see the big benefit until you get above 4 gigahertz, in my opinion. If they'll let you get a K, get a K. If you can't get a K, I mean, a 3570 is a good processor. It'll be good for a couple of years. I mean, you're not really going to go wrong. This whole computer seems like it's a good $800 computer. The addition of the SSD puts it at about $1,000. $1,300 seems a little steep, unless it has a 770.
It, yeah.
Even if you had a 770, it's still a tad steep. But for pre-built, I guess we don't know what company you're getting this from, but.
And it sounds like it's got the default cooler on there too, which is not good.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure if it's a stock, if it's a non-K processor,
freaking Intel coolers with the plastic plungers. Oh,
they are bad. Yoshi, do you have anything from Origin?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: they have full size, mid size, small, and then like the big O or whatever it is. Starting price for the full size is about $1,500. Mid size is $1,400. The small one is $1,200.
All right. What will that get you?
Now, I'm looking through right now. I'm going to customizing, and I'm not going to mess with anything. I'm just going to see what the default comes with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Default. Oh God, why is it doing that? It put the Genesis X79 in there.
That's probably a little steep.
Why is it doing that?
It knows what you want.
Okay, here. I'm going to go back.
Seriously though, the last pre-built PC that I bought was an i7 with one of those plastic stock coolers, because the company we bought it from, it was a company computer, of course, had to be pre-built. They did not support custom coolers. The plastic clips sheared off on the plungers during transportation. When I opened up, I booted for the first time and it shut down instantly. So I popped the side panel off, which I should have done to start out with, and the cooler is hanging by like one peg off the CPU.
That doesn't make me feel good.
Like it's already not a tight fit. All it took was transportation for it to just fall off. It's terrible.
All right, so
okay, here we go.
Okay,
starting price for 1521 is if you pick the AMD processor. Let's see which one. The FX 9590.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's good.
Starts out at 1521.
That's actually really 1521?
Yes.
That's
the full size.
That's full size. Okay.
You can go to the mid size and then it goes down to 1400. I would say these are worth the extra money because, they customize these things like to the max. They have their own like cooling powered processors. They also have versions for cooling powered GPUs.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And they are mainly Intel and Nvidia as well. So that'd be a plus for him because they don't really have any AMD cards as a choice.
Wow.
I'm going to go through again and I'll add to it in a second.
I have another option just to throw out there. This is $1,350 US, $1,328. This is from Main Gear. Main Gear is a very respected pre-built system people. You can get a 4670K, which is 3.4 gigahertz, 3.8 gigahertz turbo, and you can overclock it. 8 gigs of Corsair Vengeance, DDR3, 1600 megahertz RAM, and an AMD 280X. The 280X is pretty much going to be a 7970, which is a very good card. A 32 gigabyte SSD caching drive that works with your 1 terabyte Seagate Barracuda drive. So it's not as fast as a full SSD, but it's way faster than just a mechanical drive. 600 watt Corsair power supply. Sound, blah, 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 blah. So for that money, that's a way better build. Unless you were getting like a 770. If you were getting a 770 with $1,350, then they're pretty equal, except this is a way better processor.
Yeah.
So that's Main Gear. Go look at Main Gear. It's a Main Gear Vibe. That's a pretty good computer. But I do think the one you're looking at is probably a little bit expensive. I'm going to go find a really crummy one on Newegg real quick, because you can always buy these like off-brand that like they stick some huge thing in it and they're crummy.
We have a comment too from rpato92 who says that if he's in the UK, one place to go is Wire2Fire. That's wire2fire.co.uk, and I was checking out their site. It looks pretty good.
What do they got?
Super familiar. According to the sidebar, gaming systems.
Sounds good so far.
On the right track. They have a flight sim series. Oh, it's using the Cosmos case. It's my case. That's awesome. A bit old, but awesome. Wait. This thumbnail is showing a Core 2 Duo. Okay, it's just an old thumbnail.
Okay, I hope so, because that's not great.
What was our pound limit?
1,200 pounds, about 1,350 US dollars, I think.
Okay. For 1,000 pounds, we have the Diablo Predator Z87. Here we go with the names again. Which comes with a pretty average mid-tower case. Corsair 600 watt power supply. An i5 4670K at 3.4 gigahertz. A custom cooler. A RangerDave. I can't even pronounce that.
That sounds right.
Crazy word. RangerDave Furnace. No,
definitely,
Themis.
Definitely.
Themis. Yeah, that's a word. Themis CPU cooler. That's already. Ooh, a GTX 772 gigabyte with a free copy of Batman Origins. 8 gigs of DDR3, and you can actually upgrade to 16 for only 66 more bucks, which is in budget. So I'll go ahead and do that. Go to 16 gigs. Nice looking motherboard, pretty basic. No SSD, unfortunately, but a 1 terabyte Hitachi Death Star. And I tell you what, we're still under budget, so I'm going to add that SSD on there. Let's see, which one can we do? Let's add a Corsair 120 for 145. That's within budget. DVD drive, onboard sound, the usual stuff. So that brings us to a total of 1,231 pounds. That's not bad at all.
And run down the CPU and GPU again. What are those?
CPU, RAM, and GPU. We're looking at a once again the GTX 770 for the graphics card. An Intel i5 4670K quad core at 3.4 gigahertz stock, overclockable to 4.4. It says here in the option, possibly from the factory then. So it does have that custom cooler. And then 16 gigs of RAM.
That's a really good. That's good. If they are good, we can't speak about the company. Of course, we haven't ordered anything from them. But yeah. If they are legit, that is a good deal. I would get that.
rpato92 says that it's a family business, and that's where he got his PC. So that's pretty cool.
Okay. Well,
that's a great deal. That's a really great deal for the UK.
Sharky, if you have questions, find rpato on the comments of this video. Yeah. And you guys talk about it. Again, we don't want to assume anything about the company. We don't know anything about them, but rpato says they're nice. So you guys talk about it. To answer your questions, yes, you can render videos in 720, live stream and record games like BF4. None of that's going to be a problem. You're good. All right, so we pretty happy with the answer for that one?
Yeah. I want to buy parts now.
I couldn't find anything at a good price.
That's all right. So, David Norton has written into the... I maybe shouldn't have said your last name. No, you use your last name in your Twitter handle, so that's okay. Sorry about that. With BF4 coming out and the possibility of a new bad company, do you think Battlefield could potentially be going into a state of fizzling out that COD has over the years? I personally love Battlefield and would hate to see them essentially run out of ideas for their newer games. What do you think about that? Is Battlefield in danger of jumping the shark?
I want to hear you guys first.
Okay. Yoshi, you want to start?
I'm sorry, I was caught up. What was it again?
With BF4 coming out and the possibility of a new bad company, do you think Battlefield could potentially be going into a state of fizzling out like COD has This guy personally loves Battlefield and would hate to see them essentially run out of ideas for their newer games.
I don't think so. I think they have a really good creative idea with Bad Company series. I've always liked how the characters had a good interaction with each other, had the humor going on and everything like that. So I think they can keep adding to it. Like, I remember reading a review where they were saying that Battlefield 5 is going to have more destruction and all this stuff like that. So just imagine how Bad Company would be, you know? It's gonna. I think it's gonna have much more improvements compared to Battlefield 4 is, and I think they're getting better with stories. Definitely.
I do like how the Bad Company series, like, they're fun. You know, they're not super serious. I like that. So, I guess I would say potentially yes. Potentially yes. They are going into that, and actually, I'll cover more of that with the next question. Because he asked a question about COD as well. But yes, I think they could run the risk of doing that. Like we've seen with Battlefield 4, just playing the beta, it's not a totally new game. I mean, it bears a lot of resemblance to Battlefield 3. It's improved, yes. But, you know, you can't make huge improvements every single year on the same game. You know, the game has to significantly change to keep being new and fresh. So I think potentially they could run that risk. I do like that they have two kind of separate franchises with Bad Company and Battlefield. If they keep them separate, you know, that remains to be seen. But yeah, you know, I think potentially they could run the risk. I don't think they're there yet, though. Dave?
Yeah, I think they could run both at the same time, mainly because DICE has already said that Battlefield will not be an every year series. So I don't think we're ever going to see a Bad Company game come out the year after a full title. I don't think we're going to see that. And at the same time, if they really focused on, like you guys said, splitting the style of the game, not just in the single player with the characters, but for the multiplayer, adding the more over-the-top stuff, like Bad Company 2, there was more health, there were more over-the-top, like flipping debris and just stuff like that. Debris, not debris, what? Yeah, they can definitely pull it off, but at the same time, they shouldn't go back-to-back years, and DICE has already said that's not what we're going to do with Battlefield. So I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay.
I do think, what I do think might happen, though, is that DICE has gotten very, very large now. They are very, very good at what they do. I feel like EA is going to keep pumping staff into DICE until maybe not Battlefield every year, but a DICE game, main title DICE game every single year.
Until the DICE name doesn't mean much.
Exactly. Like
that's my main concern, is not the Battlefield name, but the DICE name getting diluted.
I don't think it would get diluted per se, but it would, you know, be a lot more mainstream. Like right now, if you go and talk to somebody and ask them questions about DICE, a lot of them wouldn't really know. But you go ask somebody about like Infinity Ward or Treyarch, they would know, because, you know, how COD's milked out so bad. But like they're also making you know, Mirror's Edge, and they're going to be making the Battlefront game, and they have the team in LA and in Sweden right now. So yeah, that's a reason why I think they wouldn't do the Battlefield every year thing.
They do have two studios now in Sweden, actually. They just opened a studio on, I think it's the eastern side of the country. Stockholm was on the western side, down in the south. So there are two actual DICE studios. The second one's more of a satellite studio versus like a mainline, you know, command headquarters. But there are two DICEs now.
Second question goes along in line with it, and I have a lot more thoughts about this one. Do you think Call of Duty Ghosts is going to be any different? Keep in mind, I am in fact a console gamer. Sorry, you don't need to be sorry about that. We rag on consoles, but whatever you enjoy gaming on is you enjoy gaming on. There's nothing to be ashamed of.
Just minor amounts of judgment, just small amounts.
I played consoles for years. I still have a console. It's nothing to be ashamed of. We just like making fun of them because it's easy.
I'm just too cheap to buy both a PC and a console, so I just borrow Joel's consoles.
From the looks of it, Call of Duty Ghosts is trying to switch some things up. Do you think they'll succeed, or do you think it will be just another COD game with some different multiplayer maps and campaign? I would like to go first, because I have some very strong thoughts on this one.
Drop that knowledge.
I do not think it's going to be significantly different or better. The reason being, when you come out with a successful product, there are several different ways you can proceed. You can try to make small innovations each time, which is what Apple does. Apple releases a product, and then the next year it's a little bit thinner, a little bit faster, maybe one other thing, comes in a couple more colors. And the next year they do the same thing, a little bit thinner, better camera, a little bit faster, and they just iterate, and they continuously, the products continuously get better incrementally. And a lot of computer manufacturers do that. Apple's just an easy example. With Modern Warfare, Call of Duty did revolutionize the first-person shooter genre, which had grown very stale. It was pretty much all World War II shooters. There wasn't really a whole lot going on. Modern Warfare really shook things up. Modern Warfare had a smart, focused story. It was pretty easy to follow. It had lots of memorable moments. And it was a really good campaign. I've played that campaign probably 10 times, and I have too, enjoyed it. Yeah, that is a fantastic campaign. So, the next game that came out was World at War. Treyarch was still doing the World War II thing. They took some of the stuff they learned from Call of Duty. They made an okay, decently solid game. For Modern Warfare 2, Infinity Ward was trying to follow up on the biggest thing they'd ever done, really, and one of the biggest first-person shooters ever. So they thought, all right, we need to swing for the fences on this one. Like, no holds barred, pull out all the stops. Which makes sense. But in trying to do that, they lost a lot of what made the story good the first time around. They lost a lot of the memorable segments. The whole thing felt like this meat grinder of explosions and huge set pieces, so much so that it was hard to remember individual pieces. It was just this big mishmash of violence and chaos. And the problem they'd worked their way into is because now Black Ops comes out the next year. So they've got to up the bar. And then Modern Warfare 3. And then Black Ops 2. And each one, it's trying to just do this every time. And the problem with that is that only works a few times. Look at Michael Bay. I maintain that Michael Bay is actually an extremely talented director. He gets made fun of a lot, but he does action very, very well. I mean, for what he does, he's good. But every movie he makes is like trying to one-up the one before it in the scope and the explosions and the blah noises and everything else. And the problem with that is he's now become a caricature of who we used to be. If you watch his movies from the 90s, they're really good. I mean, if you like, big action movies. And now his movies are really just caricatures. And the reason for that is you can't keep topping yourself every single time. You've got to get better in a different direction than just crazy. You can't just be crazier every single time.
You can't just do more of the same thing, like more and more and more.
Exactly. Modern Warfare was so good, not because of the huge crazy set pieces, because there was time in between them. There was quiet. There was contrast. There were peaks and there were valleys. And Modern Warfare 2 was like peak, 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 peak. And as a result of that, it all felt the same. You have to have contrast.
But Modern Warfare 2, right? Joel bought me a copy so I can play the campaign. I had not finished it yet. I'm enjoying it, but I can only play about one mission at a time because I feel like I'm just bombarded with shouting and explosions, and there's no time for rest. The enemies just keep respawning and respawning and respawning. It's too much.
And that's the same problem Battlefield 3 had with its campaign. There were some really... To a lesser extent. There were some really smart and clever moments in the Battlefield 3 campaign. I think it was actually better than whichever Call of Duty came out the same year. Modern Warfare 3, I think it was a better campaign than Modern Warfare 3.
I'll agree, yeah.
But it wasn't great. And I have had zero interest. I finished it, and I have not thought about going back to it at all. And now, you see the Battlefield 4 single-player trailers come out, and it looks good. Mm-hmm. I want to play it. Same thing with the Call of Duty Ghost trailer. It looks good. But it looks like Battlefield is going the route of bigger, crazier, aircraft carriers sinking. We're the last aircraft carrier in the world fighting against, the world. It's like they're trying to go bigger, more awesomer, more, probably more betrayals and backstabbings and your favorite people getting shot and everything like that. So I think Battlefield could be in trouble if they keep going down that path. What they need to be doing, and what Call of Duty Ghost says they're doing, by hiring actual writers. That's mean to the people who wrote the previous ones. Writers who have written for things other than video games. Writers who've written books and movies and things outside of the video game space. They are trying to make a smarter story, they say. Now, we'll see what actually happens. But if they stop trying to go bigger and they try to broaden out a little bit, like if they try to, or instead of bigger, if they just try to go a little deeper, if they try to make something that artistically has a little more merit, and I feel bad saying that about a Call of Duty campaign, but they haven't had much artistic merit.
It could happen again, though.
It could happen again. I mean, the world was very different. The world of first-person shooters was very different before Modern Warfare came out. Someone is going to release a game that redefines the genre. I mean, that happens in pretty much every genre. So someone's going to do it. Could Call of Duty Ghosts do it? Honestly, I don't think it will.
Not yet, I don't think.
I don't think so. Now, here's something else you got to keep in mind about Call of Duty. Call of Duty is owned by Activision. Activision is probably more soulless than EA when it comes to such things. Activision, you remember Guitar Hero? That was Activision. They got a cash cow, and they put out a game every year, sometimes more than one game a year. With
controllers and accessories.
Controllers, accessories, everything, until people stopped buying it. They pumped it dead. And they did the same thing with World of Warcraft. They have kept that game going way longer than they actually had good content for. Like, as soon as they merged with Blizzard, or however you want to describe their partnership with Blizzard, WoW miraculously got extended and kept getting pumped life into it because it's a cash cow. Activision's not stupid. I mean, they're very smart business-wise. They know that Call of Duty is going to be a limited thing. You're not 200 years from now, people aren't going to be excited about Modern Warfare, 150 or whatever. So they know they have to come up with other properties. So they're working on developing other things right now, I guarantee you. And they're going to keep pumping Call of Duty until it dies, because that gives them the money to try to find the next Call of Duty. I guarantee you that's what they're doing.
On the idea of missed opportunities, just to go back to the Battlefield 3 campaign for a minute and talking about the lack of innovation and how they just kind of tried to clone the kind of Modern Warfare 2 style, just the over-the-top action linear, like, look how many things are happening all at once. Like, especially for a Battlefield single-player campaign, which was really their first in the main series, I think there was a huge missed opportunity to take the Battlefield style of larger areas of combat.
Yeah, they didn't do any of that.
Imagine if all the quiet moments were like you sneaking around or flanking, or like using a vehicle like to actually pilot or do things. But no, there was none of that at all in the entire campaign. Like, what a missed opportunity right there.
You rode in a jet at one point.
And it was a great spectacle. Like, it was awesome the first time, but you had basically zero control. Like, you were to click the mouse when you were supposed to and just enjoy the ride.
Right. Yeah, it was a first-person shooter. It wasn't necessarily a Battlefield campaign. Exactly.
It felt like Modern Warfare 3.5 with better graphics. I mean, it was cool. It was a great single player. I'm glad I played through it. But man, it could have been so much better if it had some actual Battlefield stuff in there.
That being said, I'm going to probably play Call of Duty Ghosts at some point. I mean, it's it's always a spectacle. It's usually a decent ride one time around. I mean, it's usually fun, but it's not a lasting thing.
Despite the lack of huge leaps, it is nice to see them actually paying a little bit more attention to the PC version. That's nice to see.
I mean, they got to be paying some attention. Like, that 40 gigabytes must be doing something. You got to figure there also might be doing that because this is coming out on next generation consoles.
I was about to say, at the same time, I almost feel like it's just a matter of convenience. Like, well, time to give the PC some love because it's so much easier now. It's like,
right, exactly. Like, because these both new systems using Blu-ray discs, it's not that hard to do the high-res textures now, and everybody can support them. So why not?
Yeah.
So that's probably what they're doing. But yeah. So, those were our topics for this evening.
Nice.
We are actually keeping our time to a nice and tidy, slightly under 1 hour.
I got one more for you, if we have time.
Go for it. Yeah, we have time. Go ahead.
So, YouTuber Psy Syndicate, who does some DayZ stuff and Arma mainly, had a video he posted earlier this week talking about a new survival game coming out soon. Let me see if you guys find this familiar, okay? It's a multiplayer MMO style survival game. It's not zombies though; it's infected. Okay, the world has ended. It's the apocalypse. It takes place in a city area.
Does it now?
It's multiplayer, like I said. So you go in, you create a survivor character, and you try to survive. You fight the zombies, and you occasionally fight other players.
Mm-hmm.
You have to loot things to survive, like food and water and weapons and supplies. And if you really wanted to get a leg up in the game, you can go to the in-game store and purchase some items like ammunition and food and add it to your global inventory. Now, you can do this with some limited items with your in-game money, or you can just, swipe the old credit card and get a little bit of a leg up. So, kind of an old formula at this point. The idea of DayZ clones is pretty set in stone. There's a lot of them out there right now. Some better than others. Some basically crimes against humanity. But this appeared to have at least potential. However, there's a lot of hype surrounding it, and it turned out that no one had actually been playing it at all. Just a lot of hype and talk. Which, does that sound familiar from last year?
A little bit.
A little bit familiar?
Yeah.
Well, the early access started, and the game is called, let me pull up the email here. The game is called Nether.
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 Nether. And their subtitle is Pray or Pray. Pray or Prey.
Oh, fantastic.
That's a little clever, I guess. It's not, believe it or not, created by that incredibly sketchy studio that did the War Z.
Mm-hmm.
Or
you mean Survivor Stories?
Oh, yeah, excuse me, War Z/Survivor Stories. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So, in Sci Syndicate's video, and you guys should definitely go check it out if you get a minute, and just take a look at what he has to say and what he's gathered some research from some other guys about this Nether game. I started noticing some things about this game. The first thing you notice is the UI is basically an exact overlay of the War Z's UI with a new skin. The global inventory and the online store, exact same layout. There's some very similar sound effects. When you loot things in Nether, it has the exact same little spinny circle icon as you're picking it up off the ground. The running looks very, very similar, although they did add sprint in Nether, whereas the War Z has you crawl around at a snail's pace to make the map seem bigger. So yeah, it has sprint, and I really can't say this definitively, but it appears that a lot of those car and city and building and house models look awfully familiar. And then it came out that there is one man who owns 3 very interesting trademarks. Those trademarks include, and he is, I guess, not a producer on this game, but somehow involved with it. He owns the trademarks The War Z, Infestation Survivor Stories, and lo and behold, Nether.
Interesting.
What a strange coincidence. So there's a lot of talk right now about, is this the third rebranded version of that studio's game? Because originally, I really can't remember the name of the studio that produced the War Z. It's already been filed away in the area of my brain that says "do not care." But they had that free to play shooter, and then the War Z was essentially a total conversion multiplayer mod based off of that game and engine. You reuse art assets when you're an indie developer.
Right. Valve does that all the time.
Yeah, that's not uncommon. But in the case of the War Z, it was cranked out in 6 months, so a lot of it was straight copy and paste. Add some wear and tear to the car, and you're done. So if it comes out, and if we get some more evidence and some more information about how similar Nether is to the War Z, I'm really wondering, is this the third time that this company has sold this game in the last year and a half? Because if so, hats off. If they've pulled this off for a third time, they're still making money with this. Otherwise, they wouldn't still be trying it.
Right. Or they're in debt.
Let's just warn Joel so he doesn't accidentally purchase it.
I already warned him today. He wasn't convinced at first, but after a few minutes, he's like, "Okay, yeah, that's pretty suspicious." The game is being developed by a separate group of at least developers out of Chicago. So even if it is based off of the War Z, maybe there's some hope that with some more development time and some TLC, there actually will be a good game that comes out of it. But given this person's track record of just cranking out a quick cash grab with this engine and this idea, it probably won't get the time to mature into anything actually good. And people who are playing the pre-alpha are saying that the hype was not warranted at all.
The comments say Hammer Point Interactive was the developer. That sounds familiar. And
yes.
the you can't currently purchase Nether. The store isn't working.
Okay, yeah, so that's the funny part. Before I started talking about this, I was trying to pull up the website to grab some screenshots and some more, just generic info.
I was able to pull the website up.
When I tried to go to the website, Firefox warned me, this connection and this website are untrusted.
Okay, that's probably just a coincidence.
That's probably, I would imagine, either an attack or just a traffic problem. But I just thought that was kind of funny. Like, a little ironic there. So yeah, that is Nether. I mean, it could still end up being good, but not a great foundation to start things off on.
Not at all. But I mean, it's their right to try to make something if they want to. DayZ isn't out yet. I mean, you can say they're ripping off the DayZ, but DayZ, it's been a while and DayZ still isn't out, so it's not like they have a lock on the entire market.
No. But my hope is that the DayZ, if they need to keep delaying, that they actually do, and they take the time to finally be the one that comes out and just puts the effort and the time to polish the idea and not just, rush something to market. And if the last year has taught us anything, Rocket is not afraid to delay.
Mm-hmm.
On a quick related note, what do you guys think about obviously developers with modern games, when there's so much artwork and so many assets involved in creating a game, indie developers have to reuse some assets and some of their pipeline for their sequels, their next games. But at what point do you guys think they should inform consumers, like, hey guys, you're paying for a lot of the same content here? Should there be a point where you've got to warn consumers, or be like,
Call
hey,
of Duty doesn't. Madden doesn't.
Ooh.
That's true.
I mean, Madden is the perfect example. They don't do that. I mean, it's up to the consumer.
I think they would have a lot more respect from the consumers if they were honest like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think consumers would still support them because of that.
But does respect matter that much, or is it a cash grab?
Yeah. I guess it comes down to how your developer works.
I mean, if it's completely the same, yeah, that's some bullcrap. But, if it has the same basic mechanics to it and, looks like copy and paste, like Modern Warfare 3 had a building from Modern Warfare 1 in it. Like exactly the same from one of the maps on multiplayer with the trains.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It's not wrong to reuse assets. Like I said, Valve, which is generally the darling of the PC gaming community, Valve reuses like sounds and textures and stuff all the time. But they get a free pass because they make good games? Well, no.
Okay, now that's the key, in my opinion, right there. I think you can get away with reusing assets, sounds, artwork, animations, even UI and stuff, if your core gameplay is actually being improved on. And it looks like, from what I've seen of Nether, it's like a very slight change to the core formula. Actually, not even the core formula, just the overall game. The core formula is still copied and pasted from the WRZ. So when you have the artwork and the sounds and the UI being copied and pasted, and the core gameplay is as well, like, what are you getting out of the new game?
Yeah, well, time will tell. We don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
There is speculation. Arpato has said in chat, and I heard this too. There's speculation the release date might be the 5th of November, which is the same day as Call of Duty Ghosts, because that will get rid of all the 13-year-olds who'd be clogging the servers up.
I'm friendly.
That is actually a decent bit of speculation. If you want it to be a soft launch without everyone crashing the servers day one, release it on the same day as Call of Duty is a good way to get rid of the super aggressive players and to ensure that not that many people are going to play it. Although I still bet you the servers are going to crash because there's enough PC gamers who want it.
Look, if DICE and Rockstar can't handle it, Bohemia is screwed.
Bohemia, normally their servers are so reliable, but
hey, thanks GameSpy for them servers.
Anyway, guys, that's going to be the podcast for this evening. As always,
sweet.
Write in to be a part of the show, casualshenanigans@gmail.com, or tweet at us at casualshenaniga, at germgaming, at evilviking. Yoshi, do you have a Twitter or anything you want to pimp out?
Yes, let's see here. Just a quick second. I can never remember it. I don't really use it that often, but it is
glowing recommendation, guys. Glowing recommendation.
Yeah. Everybody go show Yoshi's Twitter some love after this episode.
Yes. Show me some love. It's at Mike CRZ90.
Mike CRZ.
MIKE CRZ90.
Alrighty.
And just be warned, guys, your tweets might get lost in the deluge of tweets that he's constantly checking on there. So, if you don't get through the first time, just keep trying. Like, get his attention eventually.
Hey, if I get some love, I might put some more work into it.
All right. Well, I think it's supposed to go the other way around.
That's true. That's true.
All right, guys. Thank you for being a part of the show. Write in with your questions, comments, anything like that. We like it when you're a part of the show.
Your hate mail.
Yes. Well, if you have to.
We haven't gotten any good hate mail yet. It's been 10 months now.
That's true, guys. Send us some hate mail, or go give us a 5-star rating in iTunes. Up to you.
Really helps us out.
I haven't mentioned this in a while, but if you leave a review on iTunes, I will pick random people who give reviews on iTunes, whether it's a 1-star or a 5-star. I'm not trying to influence your review because you're just as eligible either way. But I will give you a free game code. You don't get to pick the game. But I've got a buttload of game codes I've picked up in bundles and stuff, and I'm trying to get rid of them. So if you want to write a review of the
I might
podcast,
add to that myself. So
okay, yeah.
Codes for everybody. You get a code, and you get a code, and you get a code.
There are lots of codes just sitting, waiting for someone to call and take them off our hands. Too many codes. We've marked them down
guys.
like we're going out of business.
Please help us give our codes a good home.
Anyway. All right, guys. Thank you for listening. We will not see you next week. Repeat, we will not. Dave will be in London fighting for America's honor in the Revolutionary War Round 2.
For the colonies!
And I will be with Joel doing art.
Oh, wow. There's got to be a better way to say that.
Joel is filming a movie. I'm going up to help him. I think I'm going to be a bandit and get shot at some point.
Don't worry, guys. It's a very tasteful, artful movie.
Yeah, where I get shot.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that there's gunplay involved.
I have 2 lines with which to develop my character into someone that audiences will both fear and love. The early buzz is that it'll be like early 90s De Niro, so you'll definitely want to tune in for that. But yeah, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we will see you 2 weeks from now.
Oh, I got a tweet.
He's so excited.
Jamie Halton, thank you. Whoever that
is. All right, guys. Stay casual.
All right.
You being awesome.
See you later.
See you guys.
Okay, we end with stay casual, not be awesome.
No, mine's better. Be awesome.
Stay casual.